We have a big guest. Brock Huard will be joining us to talk about his career, college football, the upcoming NFL draft, all the quarterbacks. How is he evaluating the draft, and who would he pick if he were a GM drafting at the top? I'm Jon Canzano. You can read my work at joncanzano.com. He's Jon Wilner. You can find him at wilnerhotline.com. Appreciate everybody watching this. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Wilner, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, thanks. I'm excited about this show. We're going to talk about more than college sports here. We're going to talk a little bit about fatherhood / high school sports, right? Brock Huard I think he's joining us for the second time. It's at least the second time. He's on the short list of multi-time guests. Can't wait to get into it with him. And for those who don't know, Brock recently revealed that he is going to step away from his Fox announcing gig for the fall to be an assistant coach on his son's high school team. Brock's going to coach tight ends, and I think it's fantastic, and we want to get into that with him. He, of course, former Husky quarterback, former NFL quarterback, co-host of Brock and Salk on Seattle Sports in the Morning, and now assistant football coach for Valor Christian High School in Denver. Can't wait to get into it with him.
He's also joining us on his birthday. So this is kind of like, you know how celebrities will do like hey, we'll call somebody on their birthday. Like Wilner, we should be charging him for happy birthday to Brock Huard, special guest on this show. We should just we only bring people on their birthdays from now on. So good scheduling by our production crew to get him on his birthday. They're good stuff.
So now, without further ado, let's get right into it with Brock. Welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us.
Happy birthday.
I mean, no better way to spend the first day of my final years of birthdays in the 40s. I mean, this is it. So I gotta make the most of every one of these days before, life really changes. And the 5 is the front end of the birthday.
Well, I kind of gotta figure it's a pretty good segue, because in some ways, I would imagine the decision to step away from the Fox booth in the fall and coach your son is a gift, right? I mean, I would love to hear just the whole background to how that happened, how you got to that point that, you know what, this is the thing that my heart's telling me to do.
Yeah, well, there's kind of a multitude of factors, and I know the stories just kind of come out over the last couple weeks and such, but this has really been building. Titus is our youngest, so oldest graduated, finished playing basketball at Montana. Macy, my number 2, plays basketball. She'll be a junior next year at Oklahoma State. Can't believe it's crazy. And then Titus is our baby. And so kind of knew through sport, the girls were basketball players and really never played a fall sport that interfered. So I just kind of always knew that this decision with Titus, if he was going to play football, would be coming down the road. And so, I'm an analytical guy. I'm built on just kind of preparedness, and many times it drives my wife crazy. I'll work through these things in my head over and over and over before we kind of get there. So, heading into this last year, Titus was a freshman and knew that, it was also the final year of my contract with Fox. So timing wise was really ideal. I wouldn't be walking away from them or anything or reneging from a contract. Like, it just timed up really well. And let's just see how this season goes. I had helped with his youth football teams the last 2 years coaching, so I could help during the week, and I loved it. And I'd be at practices and just had an absolute blast. And then I just wouldn't be there on game day for the youth games, but that was tenable. This was not tenable. Friday night as I'm sitting in Ames, Iowa, or Lubbock, Texas, and finish a production meeting and try to get back to my phone to see what's going on. Is he getting in the game? And he was a backup on the varsity team. And it just was not. I just knew. And my wife knew, and I knew. And then when Titus eventually even expressed it and said, I'd really love for you to be around. I'm like, wow, this is check, no brainer. And then this high school made a coaching change that also, was like the right door opening with Mike Sanford, the former long esteemed college coach at Boise and Notre Dame and Western Kentucky and Minnesota. And he does media in the market that out here and outside of Denver as well. Like, in many ways, he reminds me of myself 8 years ago with where he's at in his journey. And he was ready to put down roots and got younger kids than me at like 14 and 10 and 8. and wants to make this place home. And to come alongside, it was like, yep, Lord opens this door, he opens this door, he kind of closes that door, and let's just go through it.
Let me ask you this. When you were growing up, what were those car rides home for you after games or practices? And like, what will you be like in that situation? Because you're going to be in that car for the first time with a high school kid.
Yeah, that's a good question, John. A little different with my dad being the head coach and really have built up such a program by the time that I got into it. You know, I got to watch all the things and mistakes that Damon made with my dad as they fought like brothers. And I was the sensitive middle kid. So I was a lot easier just watching all the mistakes they made, all the laps that he ran. Honestly, they almost to this day have kind of a brotherly relationship. And then I was like the sensitive middle child. Don't stir it up, overly emotional and all that good stuff. And my dad was pretty good. And, you know, I think we had a couple tough exchanges. You know, he brought this up a couple months ago. I forget what the setting was or the context of how it came up. But I remember, I think it was before either my junior or senior year, and had a tough kind of training camp practice, and he was all over me, and I was just pissed. And I thought it was overbearing. It was too much. And just kind of had it out with him. Like, I'm feeling all the weight of this. I'm feeling the expectation. I don't need that. And, you know, and it was like, oh, the sensitive middle child actually spoke up, you know, and after that, it was pretty smooth sailing. But yeah, I do remember the rides to donuts on Saturday mornings, talking about the game, and thankfully he built up a pretty incredible program. So we did not have a lot of lows and valleys, and had a lot more neat mountaintops to experience. And Valor Christian, where I'll be, is a pretty esteemed school with a lot of talent and pretty high expectations. And yeah, looking forward to journeying right alongside him and through the next steps here of his high school career.
Christian McCaffrey's alma mater, you know.
Yeah, and they just
program.
and Mike Sanford smartly just last week decided to, because he recruited Christian when he was at Stanford, so he recruited him there, and they kind of enshrined his jersey and had the whole celebration. It was really, really neat a week ago. But Roger Rosengarten there for the Ravens, has a bunch of really good players. Running back at Oklahoma now. A lot of talent has come through here, and just got to find a way to beat Cherry Creek. They're the powerhouse, and not been able to beat them here the last 4 or 5 years.
What kind of coach have you been thus far with Titus in terms of, you know, the quarterback in you versus the dad in you? And I assume you were assistant coach for Pop Warner?
Yeah. Helping with him at the QB, and he played on a couple of really good teams there with a lot of really talented, competitive kids. And never forget the Redmond North Little League Baseball Championship we won, you know, at 11 years old as well. That was a big feather in the cap. How have I been? Pretty, yeah. And, you know, it's been neat too. Like, we've got a pretty cool little weight room in the garage. In the last 4 years, I've had Titus's baseball teammates over once a week and put them through circuit training and get after them pretty good. And I would say definitely a little more on the aggressive end, the conversational end, the communication end. My dad, Damon, and Luke kind of joke that, you know, as far as a coach, I'm probably the most like my dad was. And he was pretty passionate, very, very passionate. So that's my only concern really, is what it's going to do to my vocal cords, both for my radio show and especially for my Madden tapings. It may be a little problematic. We'll have to build up the vocal cords a little bit.
The way that kids are being coached now, a lot of college coaches are talk about, you know, they have to speak differently because of the portal, and basketball in particular with guys jumping around. But what do you see with kids? Because you've watched a couple of your kids now kind of get into the college structure, and is the NIL world in your area creeping down into high school the way it is in the state of Oregon? You've got high school kids here who are getting deals. So, you know, are you seeing any of that yet?
We've not necessarily seen that. I've seen kids head out to IMG and Mater Dei and some of those other places to get school paid for, or, you know, to get paid, but have not seen that. What comes to my mind is something that Damon and I have talked a lot about. A lot of my former teammates have talked about. Even Christian McCaffrey at the enshrinement talked about. I think where my mind goes with that question is that now high school is the best time. It's the single best time. It's what college was 25 years ago. It's where you have memories. It's where you cultivate relationships. It's where you persevere through hard times. It's where you develop in so many ways as a person, as a teammate, as a leader, that the college landscape is now ripped away. That it's just become, an impersonal, disloyal, year-on-year transactional business. And high school is actually where relationships can still be cultivated. So that also, I think, makes this door opening that much more appealing, is because these are the times you could create legitimate bonds, lifelong bonds, relationships that can last, rather than just the very, very disingenuous nature of college athletics today.
Could you see yourself coaching full time after next season, and when you do not have any children involved in high school athletics?
Well, it'll be 3 years with Titus. So it'd be, just kind of see with open hands what these next 3 years, look like, or what this next year looks like. And I don't want to entirely shut the door, because I love broadcasting. And there might be some NFL opportunities, whether that's this calendar year or the following year. And I got to do that in 2020 and so thoroughly enjoyed that aspect. It was frankly way easier than college football, with 47 guys that versus all of the turnover that we see at the college game, and the pacing of it and the teaching of it. And so we'll see. Just kind of pretty open hands with where this is going to go. But would it shock me if I love this? Would it surprise me if I went, kind of like Frank Reich did, when he raised his kids, and he and his wife looked at each other and said, I wonder if this is the next journey for us. Who knows? But I think we're a few years away from that.
So the big thing is NFL would allow you to attend the Friday night games.
Correct. So that would still afford me the chance to fly out on red eyes Friday nights and be in production meetings on Saturdays, and still be a part of it there. So we'll see. The NFL is a little different entity when it comes to those boosts and the loyalty, and it's pretty neat that the loyalty that Fox has and CBS has had through the years. So it's hard to get into, but I feel like my mind can still be capable of doing that.
I was watching the Sunday Masters broadcast, and I thought CBS did a really good job when Rory wins it. They just kind of, Jim Nantz stepped back, right? They let the moment, the crowd, the emotion kind of carry that. You're in that booth. How long does that take you as a broadcaster to figure out when to be quiet, when to step in, who's in your ear? Can you help us with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Jim is just, and that's the nature of the Masters. It's less is more. You want to hear the birds chirping. It's amazing. They turn up the bird mics so loud that you hear those birds. You can almost feel the azaleas talking to you as much as the announcer. So that is clearly a mandate. And having experienced that place in 2021, I was there for the Sunday and walked the grounds, and that I'll never do it again, because 2021 was about half capacity. There were no grandstands. Wow. It was Matsuyama one. I mean, it was, you could never top it. So never going to do that again. But yeah, they know it. The whole brand knows it, right? From the top down, they know exactly what the Masters is. And then Jim and all the cohorts do such a beautiful job of that. I think of one of my favorite calls in my 19 years of broadcasting. I think of Hypnotoad in a hurry. Jason Benetti next to me at Baylor. TCU's 10-0. They ran their kicker on, if you remember that game. They ran a run play, and I was like, what are we doing? And Jason kind of felt my energy, and he makes the kick, and I just kind of give, I'm shaking. And then you just let the images, because there's nothing you're going to say for those 2 minutes. As the guys are running, there's hugging, there's tears, there's joy, there's demise in the crowd. All of it. You just let the pictures tell the story. And John, when you're working with really good people, directors, producers, cameramen and women, play-by-play, you're all on the same page. And the pictures are so much better than anything you're going to say. But it takes a while, and there's a reason that the best crews, as you kind of climb the ladder, typically do more and more and more of that, because you've got the best directors, the best producers, the best camera folks, the best in the business right alongside you as teammates.
How long did it take you and Benetti? I think he's fantastic, to get to that point where the chemistry is just seamless.
First game, Nebraska.
Really?
Yeah, it was the very first game we did. It was Scott Frost. Remember the onside kick versus Northwestern?
Oh yeah.
And we actually did it from the booth. It was our first game together, and we did it from a studio remotely. It's the only remote game we did. We didn't go to Ireland for that. And I think at halftime of the game, I was like, "Yeah, this is pretty good." You just kind of, probably not too different. We talk about it a lot, like making music. You know, when you're in a broadcast booth, you're making music. When you're doing a podcast,
Yep.
you're making music. When you're doing a radio show, you're making music. You're creating content. And I'm sure, and I have no musical inclination, I'm tone deaf, along with, having no smell and being colorblind and all the other, challenges I have got to overcome in my life. So I'm not a musician, but I can bet musicians within a few songs or a few, as they're just playing, are like, I feel this singer, I feel this bassist, I feel this drummer, I feel this chemistry. And the first game, leaving the studio, I was like, this is going to be pretty fun. His mind is so deeply curious. He's so witty. He was the first guy, play-by-play wise, again, when it comes to like lyrics and music and notes, he didn't write any notes. The director's like, for the open, okay, here's your shots, and yours truly and everybody I've worked with, like, jots it down, like, writes, okay, here's this shot, and just kind of weaves, outlines the way they want to go about it. Nothing, like, not a note. Like, he saw it once, he had it, wanted to do it in real time, and just like, he's got a pretty special brain, no question.
I'm curious what you make of, we've got this situation with Tennessee and a quarterback and a family and a free market or an open market is becoming a problem, and coaches back channeling. I'm sure they're not the only ones doing that, but what do you make of what's happening in college football?
Yeah, I chatted with an old longtime coach last week at my UFL game, and he said it appropriately. He said, if we would have just done the right thing 10 to 15 years ago when the revenues started to explode, if we could have just done it then, where we could have had structure, where we could have said, hey, let's do this, let's take these steps here, let's build a foundation, let's build the right plan. You could kind of process this. And now there's no process. Now there's total, right, just deconstruction, deregulation, total free-for-all, no leadership, no guardrails, no construction, and it's just utter chaos. It's just utter chaos. And yes, pocketbooks get lined. Yes, some savings accounts and checking accounts make a lot of millions of dollars, and for some, it's just totally life-changing and hopefully generationally can impact and bring a lot of quality of life and do a lot of the right things. But we kind of know through lottery winners, when there's also not familial substance and structure, that it actually creates an immense amount of chaos. We know the challenges, that more money often causes many more problems than it does solutions. And it's a chaotic mess. And there's a lot of people hurt. Fans, most importantly, I think, are hurt. I think teammates in a locker room are hurt. I think individual players are hurt when they've got to make the choice. I think of the Penn State backup QB last year, with even the timing of the portal. I mean, you're asking money in NIL, but even the timing of this transfer portal, like, I gotta turn my back on all my buddies for 2 years that we've spent to get to this playoff, and I can't. And I play a role. I play 7 to 10 snaps in a Wildcat. Like, and I got to make this choice. And this sport and this game are putting me in this place where I got to put myself ahead of everyone else, and it just leaves a pretty sour taste.
What type of coach or program do you think is going to be best equipped? What will the characteristics be, you think, of the schools that really thrive in this era? If you figure that the disparity in money is shrinking, right, the resource factor, it seems like that would then place a premium on how programs are run.
Yeah. Well, I think of the last 20 years, think of the top programs and the way that Nick has run them, and Kirby and guys, they just cut entitlement out.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, those are going to be the best run programs. And I don't think that element has changed. It's just a whole new way of doing it, because that entitlement now doesn't just stretch to the kid. It stretches to the dad and to the families and to the managers and to the money marketers and the agents and all the different elements of it. But that ability to just say, hey man, entitlement has no place here. I don't care how talented you are. I don't care what we're paying you. And it's no different really in the NFL. When you get to the NFL, how many programs in the NFL, 7, 10 of the 32, that are really well run, that don't have ego, that cut entitlement out, that say, yeah, if you're a first round pick or you're an undrafted free agent, like Pete Carroll was with the Seahawks for all those years, if you're Doug Baldwin I don't care, the best player is going to play. And so I think that ability to cut entitlement off at the knees will and always has benefited, but that much more in this climate.
I've been thinking about quarterbacks in with the portal being involved, and I talked to Dennis Erickson just the other day, and he said, "Gosh, what do? You're trying to develop a guy." He goes, "Gino Torretta, you got him in my system. It helped to have him for 2 or 3 years, but you're seeing guys that are maybe 3 or 4-star quarterbacks maybe pick some mid-major schools where they can play right away with the idea that they'll transfer, almost using it like a community college. But can you develop a guy anymore if you're a coaching staff in this, especially at that position? I'd love to hear your take on that.
Oh, I think it's unbelievably hard. I think the hardest and most challenging impact and aspect is the high school quarterback. Because if you don't come in right away, right, and play as a freshman like Caleb Williams did, or Jaden Daniels, or some of these guys that you have seen, Bo Nix, for better or worse, and you'll probably transfer, sadly, because it's kind of like a pitcher with Tommy John. You throw 98, eventually your UCL is going to be damaged. And, with the chaos of all of this, transactional nature, to think you're going to be at one spot developing for 4 years, I would love it, but that's definitely the anomaly in today's college game. But I think the high school quarterback is the one that's the most hurt. As I look at it and study it and see all the guys that were 4-star, super talented, can throw it, but there's just like no incubation of the human being from the inside out. And that's what usually the substance of great quarterbacks is. Like, I just want to, I say this to Titus and young quarterbacks all the time, really don't care how pretty your spiral is. You do. Really don't care how far you throw it. You do. Don't really care. I care about your accuracy and anticipation, but I really care about you as a leader. And will guys follow you? And those are the ones. And in the state of it, it's really hard. I was chatting with Bruce Feldman about this a couple years ago. Bruce was with me when we were in Bloomington, Indiana, mid-season, and Michael Penix was done. He was done. He was just broken for Tom Allen and the SID there. And it was like, well, can he play? What's going on? It was like, just don't ask. It's just not good. It's just not a healthy. He's Humpty Dumpty, and he was totally broken from the inside out. And he talked about it, being on the floor, like in the fetal position, crying, like trying to handle all of the expectations and all that comes with, playing that position. And just trying to find like that fortitude and that substance. Bo Nix at Auburn, and leaving everything he had and just said, forget it, go west, young man. I'm going to go as far away as I can and just be rebuilt from the inside out. And had at that time, Kenny Dillingham, who believed in him. And for Michael Kalen DeBoer, who believed in him and had such an advocate to rebuild him. And like Humpty Dumpty, put him back together. And then to watch him flourish and be, first round top 12 picks and do all of that at the time when Bo Nix left Auburn and Michael Penix was in the fetal position in Bloomington. To think that they would be the 8th pick and the 12th pick and flourish as rookies in the NFL, you never thought that. But you got to build that substance inside out, and it's really, really, really difficult to do in today's college football.
Good segue to and we know we're going to let you go here soon. You got to get to a birthday lunch, but you are an NFL GM. You need a quarterback. Dart, Sanders, or Ward, or someone else? Is there someone else you really like?
It's a tough class for me. Yeah, okay. This is a tough class for me. Last year, Penix injury sustainability was the only question. Bo Nix was such a stud, and you just knew it, and people just loved him. The way that the guys followed and believed in Jay. Like last year, just had a lot of those guys. Caleb was a little quirky, right? He was a little eccentric. It didn't end really well at USC. And I think that last year at SC, in his rookie year, it built some fortitude and, some thick skin, and I think are going to benefit him over the long term. Yeah, this is a tougher group for me. Cam is obviously the most, I think, sustainable. And again, from Incarnate Word to Pullman, Washington, to Coral Gables, Florida. I mean, there's been a lot of substance building coming off of a wing T offense in high school, but had an advocate at Incarnate Word, and then he went to Pullman and brought him with him and had an advocate there. And then he had to kind of be thrown into the deep waters there in Miami and be able to swim. And yeah, he's got, to me, kind of a lot of, I like his size. I like his structure. I like his substance. I like just that grit that I think has been built in him. And I think Tennessee does too. And why he would be the one. Shadour's fascinating. I mean, we don't have enough time for all of this with all these different guys. The fact that they are The fact they're retiring his jersey before Cordell Stewart, I just
Darian Hagan.
I mean, like that is the most. And once again, like for the player, like that's unhealthy.
Yeah,
it's just like not right. Like what are we doing? Enshrine his jersey at Jackson State, where he won 20-something games and all league. Unbelievable. 13-12 and 1-7 versus ranked team. Like what are we doing?
Yeah,
It's not a healthy way to build. Now on the flip side, the dude is freaking tough as nails. And I had him 4 times last year. And I love the toughness. And I love, like, he is old school. Dion calls him grown, as in grown man. And there's like a grown man nature to him that right place, right fit, right time, right team, right culture. There's some good stuff there. But man, why would anybody want it? Why didn't he just, or like, we're not doing that. Retire Travis's. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
But that's not, again, today's kind of nature where it's all about right here and right now and taking advantage of it. Jackson, to me, would be a great second-round pick. A lot of these guys in the mid-rounds are intriguing. Jalen Milroe in the 3rd or 4th round would be intriguing to me. If you pinned me down and said you only get one, I would say Jalen Milroe, if the Seahawks took him at the 2nd pick in the 3rd round, would be great because there is plus run, plus size, plus athleticism. He's got the highest plus trade, arguably, of any of them. Now, there's severe negatives of processing, accuracy, holding the ball, but that offense of run and play action and movement, there's a bunch of stuff, and that plus trait to work with it would intrigue me the most.
I'd be really tempted if I were at the top of this draft not to take a QB, because I just think that class last year, there were 2 or 3 guys in there that I like better than the risk associated with this. What would you do? You're at the top of this draft. Do you move back? Do you take the risk? Put you in
all over this draft, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round. I take big people.
Yeah.
It's funny, how the NFL, cycles, and obviously what Howie's done in Philly and building up that line, and Baltimore sustained. But go back to the 80s. Go back to Bill Parcells. Some of what I will miss the most of being on the road are the conversations with the coaches. Beyond my teammates, Jason and Allison and Bo and Darren, the whole crew, and just the camaraderie and love we have for one another, and just enjoy doing what we do. It's learning from these coaches. And it never felt like 19 years it ever got stale. I always felt like I learned something. I come out of a production meeting with a coach. I learned something. And, it was a couple of years ago with Jimbo Fisher at Florida State. And he was talking about, the history of where it all comes from. And it was Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick and Nick Saban, and like that tree of like big people matter. And if it's ever even, take the big person. They're durable. They're sustainable. You win at the line of scrimmage, and and this is a meat and potatoes, big people draft. And I'm tired of like, oh, we can get a guard later. No, get a tackle and make them a guard. Like, make your line the best it can be with the most talented athletes. And there are some great athletes as offensive linemen in this draft, from Kelvin Banks to Connerly, the guys at the top, obviously. They are great athletes. Kid Membu, great athletes. Give me great athletes at the line of scrimmage. If I was a GM, I am taking that over and over and over and over again, because there is an abundance. This is a draft with a bunch of 6 years and 5th years. This is the kind of the finishing of the COVID years. And there's a bunch of grown men in this draft. And I would get as many of those guys as possible.
So you mentioned you were colorblind. Can you not see purple?
Purple and blue are very hard. Like, if I can't get purple or blue. So I see that, whatever that purple blue is, and whatever that brown green is, and whatever those blobs are, I see those. But if you were to put up something and said, hey, Brock, put your readers on, is this blue or is this purple? It'd be a 50-50 shot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've had to overcome a lot, John. Okay. People think, I've got silver spoon. We were Value Village in Puyallup. We were milk cartons. We ran out of food at the end of the month. I was tone deaf, colorblind, very little sense of smell. So, been an overcomer.
How do you find a receiver when you're, in that situation?
There always was a white, right? There's always a white and a dark.
Yeah.
Now, the whole color rush that they did that night, I think it was the Jets and Bills, disaster. And the colorblind nation thankfully rose up and said, enough. We can't do this. It's not sustainable. The hardest time, in my whole life was in sport, was summer league high school basketball. Because, you'd have a blue and a purple and, red, a gray. Like, it's just, and I have to say, hey, skins and shirts. And I don't care if you're chubby. Skins and shirts. The only way we're going to do this thing.
Brock, we will be rooting for Valor Christian this fall. Are you guys going to be? You got a good team?
Yeah, this is a really talented program. Got legitimately 3 Power 4 offensive linemen.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, the left tackle is like a Bama, Michigan SC. The left guard, who's a freshman, Davis, immensely talented. The center, if you remember the old Colorado Buffalo, Matt Russell, the old All-American linebacker, his son Reese. And these are already offers. This isn't like projecting. These kids are all big time. There's a lot of colleges that would like Valor Christian's offensive line because there's a lot to work with there. And so it's going to be fun. I think we'll be a lot of Boise State, a lot of power, a lot of run right through your face, a lot of play action. And yours truly will be the tight ends coach, handling a lot of 12 personnel. Can't wait.
Love that. Hey, but before we let you go, birthday, you had a birthday gift you remember as a kid that stands out? I remember getting electric football. Remember when you set up the pieces and you turn it on, it vibrated. And
yeah.
What did you get as a kid?
I would say, Johnny, what hit me right there was a Christmas gift. Peg and Mike must have got a little bonus somehow, some way, because some years were Lane, some years were Mervin's, some years were very little gifts. But one year, Peg and Mike must have got some inheritance, and Damon and I got matching Seahawk bikes with the banana seat and blue and green, the little tassels off of the handlebars. And we were owning 9th Street. Like we owned 9th Street that year.
I love it. I love it.
Well, Brock, thanks a ton. And especially, on a day that means so much to you personally, we really, really appreciate it. Sorry I didn't reach out earlier and get you on before, but
well, it's a blast. It's always fun. Yeah, it's fun. And I'll be following you guys. And, why don't you guys find a way to get some leadership, a commissioner, some structure, try to do your part to get college football back on the rails. Could you do that, please?
Amen. Amen to that, man. I appreciate you.
Something else.
Okay, boys.
Have a great day. Have a good lunch.
So much, Brock.
Happy birthday.
Take care, man.
First of all, I just love his insight on the QBs in the draft and what he sees there, or maybe what he doesn't see there, because I agree. Like you look back to last year's draft and there was a Caleb Williams and a Jaden Daniels and a Michael Penix and a Bo Nix and a Drake May. And I felt better about all of those guys than I do about this year's class because there's more risk here. And I love his idea to go big. As Chip Kelly said, big people beat up little people.
They do. I also thought it was interesting what he said about, the thick skin and the character and that being so important, more important than the arm strength, that kind of thing. And it's so hard to measure that stuff. The things that are the most important about playing the QB position are the hardest to measure.
Right.
And that is the reason why so many teams miss on their quarterbacks every year. And yet everybody's always trying to get a quarterback because it is such a difficult position and you can't measure the things that are the most important. I thought he did a great job expressing that relative to Sanders and Ward, especially.
Yeah. And true. He brought up the Eagles. You look at the Super Bowl and the way they won that game, they dominated the line of scrimmage. And we often will see it's a copycat league. I'll be very curious to see the teams that are picking like 2, 3, 4, 5. Are they just salivating at the idea that somebody's going to pick, a risk at 1 in Cam Ward? And I can't unsee what I remember from Cam Ward at Washington State. I agree. He's got the potential, but I didn't see a guy that, I would have picked in the top 5. And I worry about the soft schedule at Miami and the talent he had around him. How much of his success last year was a product of all the pieces around him. And will he have that in the NFL with a team that's picking number 1 overall? I think it's a big risk there at 1.
It is. I thought this was a great episode. If I had another thought about it more, it would have been perfect for a Father's Day episode,
Yeah.
But it was great to just talk to him about being a dad and having been coached by his dad and then coaching his son, right? That's a great circle of life.
Terrific insight and perspective for people who look, I've got 3 daughters and you've got a kid who's getting ready to go off and make a college decision. And I've got a senior in college and I've got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. And I realize because of that spread that I have with 3 kids, I realize how fast it goes. And how little time you have left when they're, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, and then suddenly they're off with their friends. And so I think it's great that he's getting that experience to be part of his kid's life, and he's prioritizing that, and love that he seems to think about this stuff and has thought it through in a way where, like, there's a potential here he's going to stay in broadcasting and maybe be in the NFL. And I think that's the right move for him.
Yeah, for sure. And I think he's a terrific broadcaster too. And there's going to be a hole in college football broadcasting in the fall because he's not going to be there. But he'll be having a more fulfilling existence for himself. So we wish him all the best. He's asking if he can log off.
Yeah, he can log off. Yep. I can log him off. I'm going to remove him.
Okay. Sorry, I can restart.
No.
I didn't want him to be hanging.
He's kicked. Okay. He's gone. Okay. Pick up.
So, we're going to miss him in the fall. He does a terrific job. He and Benetti and Williams, I think that's one of the best crews there is. And he's got such great perspective on the quarterback position, college football, the different conference realignment aspects of the whole thing. It's gonna be different not having him on Friday night games or on the number 2 Fox game. I'm curious to see how they're gonna handle his absence, but wish him well for sure. It's great that he's gonna be able to do that.
Right thing. And I love his opinions, love his analysis. It kind of provides a little bit of a segue for us here, maybe to just touch on this a little bit, where the Pac-12 coming down the pipeline, 2025 media rights with Oregon State and Washington State, and then expected not long after that the 26 deal get formalized, but looks like they're getting close, Wilner, or at least I'm being told it's a matter of done by the end of the month probably stuff. But looks like the CW is coming in as the primary partner in 2025, with maybe a little bit of Fox and TNT picking up the other games, maybe 9 games for the CW, the rest for Fox and TNT. How did that strike you?
Yeah, I think that the CW seemed to me like leader in the clubhouse all along, given the relationship that was built last fall and the fact that Pac-12 Enterprises can do the production for them, I think is probably big. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You did some first-rate reporting on that because it's hard to get that kind of stuff. The media rights information is the toughest to get to from a reporting standpoint, for sure. And Fox would make sense too. They had Oregon State, Washington State games last year, and they got the relationship with the Big 12. So yeah, it makes sense. My question is for you. Let's say they do get the 25 schedule done with the media deals. Then how long does it take to get 26 and beyond? And what do you think? You think that it's going to be all the same partners for the longer term deal, or maybe not?
Here's how I was told that 95% of the bandwidth right now is on the 26 deal. They're mostly done with 25, and it's just a matter of formalizing that. And now they have kind of, and these two things have been negotiated sort of, simultaneously, because you're going to have, I think, very much the same partners involved in 26. I think Teresa Gold told me back in November, she said, we don't want to wait until 26 to start telling our story.
Makes sense.
So, but I think what would change potentially is, does the CW, who, if they take 9 games in 2025, do they only take 9 games in 2026? Is that all the inventory that they can take? Or is ESPN going to pull back some ACC games and now the CW can be a bigger partner for the Pac-12? I would kind of expect that if I'm Fox in particular, you're going to have a choice between the Mountain West Conference and the Pac-12 in 2026 and beyond. And if I'm Fox, I think there are better games in the Pac-12. And so I kind of wonder if Fox and TNT, if they are the other two partners, because I was told it was major partners with huge exposure. If they're the other partners, do they take the bulk of the games in 26 and beyond, and the CW just kind of stays in that position where they're getting 9 or 10 games a year? That's a big question, because and I think it's probably why this is going to get rolled out as, here's the 25 deal, and then here's the 26 deal. There's a meeting at the end of the month in person with the presidents and the ADs. And I kind of think that nobody said it, but I kind of think that they're targeting that as everybody getting together. All right, we've got our thing, and here's the expansion piece. And so keep an eye on that.
You think that the expansion piece will be settled soon after?
Has to be, doesn't it? Like, what do you think? I mean, I kind of think if I'm CW and I'm TNT and Fox and I'm signing this deal for 26 and beyond, I kind of want to know who's in the conference.
I kind of do too. I always think about the overlay of the lawsuits and the role that could play. Right now the poaching penalty lawsuit and the exit fee lawsuit, I think the stay on the poaching penalty at least expires May 16th. I think it is. It's the middle of May. So it's possible that if they could wait into the first half of May, that they would know what the outcome is going to be of that lawsuit. And that could tell them what the landscape will be like in terms of options. But at the same time, the mediation could, who knows how long it could take. And so I wonder if they may try to gauge that. But at the same time, they may just want to plow forward and you fill in the blank with that last team or two afterward.
And I wondered too, if it's true, if my speculation about Fox maybe having a choice between the Mountain West and the Pac-12, and Fox says, hey, we're buying the Pac-12 for 26 and beyond. I've kind of wondered how that impacts a potential settlement, and are there bad feelings there? And is there an advantage for the Pac-12 to sit back, to lay up a little bit and not come out with that 26 deal while they're still trying to settle the poaching penalty? Because if I'm the Mountain West, I'm using that, right? I'm going to come back and go, look, you're getting all this extra money, and look at us. You're taking our partner. I think that's at play in the background too. And also, as we've been told by Bob Thompson, the former retired Fox, president, sports network president, these deals that start from scratch, they're hard. And Turner TNT, are they coming in just for basketball and a little football? Or are they just going to buy all the basketball? One involved person just told me it is a major provider or two that will give maximum exposure. In my mind, ESPN doesn't need more games. So it's Fox, it's TNT. I think that's where I'm looking right now and expect to see that maybe unfold here in the coming weeks.
Yep. Well, and Fox seems to be interested in college basketball these days, right? They got the Friday night games, Big Ten, Big East. They just started that tournament, the college basketball crown. I certainly would think that they would have some interest in a package that involves Gonzaga. That makes a lot of sense. We've been talking about realignment, not just you and I, but everyone, since June 30th, 2022. Even since middle of July 2021, when Texas and Oklahoma announced they were leaving the Big 12 for the SEC. So it's going to end up being basically 4 years, this realignment wave that's changing college sports, 4 years from the for the ripple from the top to the bottom of the power conference structure. It is something else.
Well, I appreciate everybody listening and watching this podcast and videocast. Make sure you subscribe, share it with friends and family, post it to your socials so other people can find it. We will be back next week with an all-new episode.
Thanks, everybody.